Let me tell you something most people only figure out after they've already been through too much heartbreak, confusion, and emotional exhaustion. It's not the world that lowers your value in someone's eyes. It's what you consistently accept when no one is watching. See, we like to believe that love is enough. We think if we care enough, give enough, stay patient enough, then eventually the other person will realize our worth and treat us better. But that's not how people work. People don't respond to what you feel. They respond to what you tolerate. And the moment you start ignoring disrespect, excusing inconsistency, chasing attention, and abandoning your own standards just to keep someone close, you don't realize it, but you're teaching them exactly how to treat you. Now I need you to hear this clearly. Your value is not something somebody gives you, and it's definitely not something somebody takes away. Your value is something you either protect or slowly give up without noticing. And once that shift happens, everything in your relationship starts to change. So before we talk about love, attraction, and relationship, we've got to talk about you, your standards, your boundaries, and the habits that quietly destroy how people see your worth. Because if you don't understand this part first, you'll keep repeating the same cycles with different faces, wondering why nothing ever changes. So let's break it down honestly. Let me tell you something that a lot of people learn the hard way. The moment you start depending on someone else to tell you your value, you've already given away more power than you realize. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wanting to be loved. We all want that. We all want to feel appreciated. We all want somebody to look at us and say, "You matter to me." That's human. That's natural. But there's a line between enjoying someone's affection and depending on it to feel good about yourself. And that's where a lot of people get into trouble. See, when a woman starts looking to a man for constant validation, she doesn't even notice what's happening at first. It starts small. Maybe she wants a little reassurance. Maybe she wants to hear that she's beautiful. Maybe she wants to know he's still interested. Nothing wrong with that. But then something changes. Instead of enjoying those things, she starts needing them. Now every day becomes a test. If he texts quickly, she feels secure. If he takes longer than usual, she feels anxious. If he compliments her, she feels confident. If he doesn't, she starts questioning herself. If he's attentive, she's happy. If he's distracted, her whole mood changes. Do you see the problem? Her emotional state is no longer in her own hands. She's handed the steering wheel to somebody else. And whenever your happiness depends on another person's behavior, you're putting yourself in a dangerous position. Because people are imperfect. They get busy. They have stressful days. Sometimes they're distracted. Sometimes they're dealing with things that have nothing to do with you. But when your confidence depends entirely on their reactions, every little change starts feeling like rejection. Now you're overthinking. Now you're analyzing every message. Now you're reading into every word. Now you're creating problems that don't even exist. And here's what many people don't understand. The more desperately you seek validation, the harder it becomes to receive genuine affection, because confidence attracts people. Neediness exhausts them. A confident woman doesn't walk into a room wondering if everyone likes her. She walks into a room comfortable with herself. There's a huge difference. One woman says, "I hope he chooses me." The other says, "I'm choosing whether he's right for me." One woman constantly asks, "Do you still want me?" The other woman understands her worth whether the answer is yes or no. That's power. And power doesn't come from controlling other people. It comes from controlling yourself. I've seen people completely lose themselves because they became addicted to approval. They stop making decisions based on what they actually want. Instead, they make decisions based on what they think will make someone stay. They change how they dress. They change how they talk. They change what they believe. They change their boundaries. They change their standards. They become a different person because they're terrified of losing someone's attention. But here's the irony. The very thing they're trying to protect is often the thing they're pushing away. Because when you stop being yourself, people can feel it. Authenticity has a certain energy. Confidence has a certain presence. When somebody genuinely likes who they are, it shows. And when somebody is constantly looking for external approval, that shows too. Think about the people you admire most. The people who naturally command respect. The people who seem comfortable wherever they go. Most of them aren't spending their lives trying to convince others of their worth. They already know it. They don't wake up every morning asking the world for permission to feel valuable. They've made that decision themselves. That's why rejection doesn't destroy them. Disappointment doesn't define them. A failed relationship doesn't erase their identity because their confidence wasn't built on another person's opinion. It was built from within. And that's what you have to understand. A man's attention is not proof of your value. A man's interest is not proof of your value. A man's commitment is not proof of your value. Those things can be wonderful additions to your life, but they should never become the foundation of your self-worth. Because if somebody can give you your value, somebody can take it away, and that's too much power to hand to another human being. The strongest women I've ever seen aren't the ones who get the most attention. They're the ones who don't need attention to know who they are. They appreciate love, but they don't depend on it. They enjoy compliments, but they don't require them. They welcome relationships, but they don't lose themselves inside them. They understand that before anybody else believed in them, they had to believe in themselves. And that's the lesson. Stop asking people to confirm what you should already know. Stop looking outside yourself for proof that you're worthy. Stop measuring your value by somebody else's level of interest. Because the day you truly understand your worth is the day desperation disappears. And when desperation disappears, confidence takes its place. And confidence will always be more attractive, more powerful, and more valuable than constantly searching for validation from someone else. Let me tell you about one of the biggest mistakes people make when they fall in love. They start treating the relationship like it's their entire identity. Now, don't misunderstand me. Love is powerful. When you meet somebody who makes you happy, it's natural to want to spend time with them. It's natural to think about them. It's natural to make room for them in your life. That's what healthy relationships do. They become an important part of your life. But the problem starts when they become your whole life. And a lot of people don't even realize it's happening. At first, everything feels normal. You're excited. You're spending more time together. You're talking every day. You're building a connection. Nothing wrong with that. But then, little by little, you start letting go of the things that made you who you are. You stop spending time with your friends. You stop focusing on your goals. You stop pursuing your hobbies. You stop doing the things that once brought you joy. Every decision starts revolving around one person. Every plan depends on one person. Every mood is influenced by one person. Before long, you've built your entire world around somebody else's presence. And that's dangerous, because no relationship was ever meant to carry that kind of weight. See, when a man first meets you, he's not just noticing your appearance. He's noticing your energy. He's noticing your confidence. He's noticing your independence. He's noticing the fact that you have a life, a purpose, dreams, interests, passions. That's attractive. A woman who knows who she is naturally stands out. She doesn't need to convince people she's valuable because her life already reflects it. But then something happens. She gets comfortable. She becomes afraid of losing the relationship. And instead of continuing to build her own life, she starts shrinking it. Now everything becomes about him. What he wants, what he likes, what he needs, what makes him happy. And somewhere along the way, she forgets to ask herself one important question. What about me? You see, healthy love should never require you to disappear. A relationship should add to your life. It should not replace your life. That's a lesson many people learn after they've already sacrificed too much. I've seen people walk away from friendships because of relationships. I've seen people abandon goals because of relationships. I've seen people stop chasing dreams because of relationships. Years later, they look around and realize they don't even recognize themselves anymore. And here's the hard truth. When you lose yourself trying to keep somebody else, you often lose both. Because the qualities that attracted that person to you in the beginning start disappearing. Think about it. If someone was attracted to your confidence, what happens when insecurity replaces it? If they admired your ambition, what happens when you stop pursuing your goals? If they loved your independence, what happens when you become completely dependent on them? The attraction changes, not because you're a bad person, but because you stop being the person they originally connected with. Now, I'm not saying relationships don't require compromise. Of course they do. Every healthy relationship requires sacrifice. Every healthy relationship requires teamwork. But compromise and self-erasure are two different things. Compromise says, let's find a solution that works for both of us. Self-erasure says, I'll give up everything to make you happy. One is healthy, the other is dangerous. And here's something you need to remember. The right man doesn't want you to abandon your identity for him. The right man wants to see you thrive. He wants to see you grow. He wants to see you succeed. He wants to see you become everything you're capable of becoming. Because a secure person isn't threatened by your growth. They're inspired by it. A mature relationship is two complete people choosing to walk together, not one person disappearing into the life of another. That's why it's so important to maintain your own goals, maintain your friendships, maintain your interest, maintain your personal growth, continue learning, continue improving. Continue becoming the best version of yourself, because your relationship status should never determine whether you keep growing. The most respected women understand this. They love deeply. They support their partners. They invest in their relationships, but they never forget who they are. They never stop being themselves. They never hand over the responsibility of their happiness to another person. They know that their purpose existed before the relationship, and it will continue existing regardless of what happens. That's real confidence. That's real strength. And believe it or not, that's what creates lasting attraction. Because people are drawn to those who have a sense of purpose. They're drawn to those who value themselves. They're drawn to those who have something meaningful happening in their own lives. When you have your own goals, your own dreams, and your own identity, you bring something powerful into a relationship. You bring stability. You bring confidence. You bring authenticity. But when you abandon yourself to keep someone else, you create an imbalance that eventually hurts both people. So never make the mistake of believing that love requires you to become less of yourself. The best relationships don't force you to shrink. They encourage you to expand. They don't take away your identity. They strengthen it. And the moment you understand that, you'll stop sacrificing your future for temporary approval. You'll stop losing yourself in relationships. You'll realize that the greatest gift you can bring into any relationship is not your dependence. It's your wholeness. Because the most valuable version of you will always be the version that remembers who you are, protects who you are, and refuses to abandon who you are for anyone. Let me tell you something that can change every relationship you'll ever have. Your emotions are powerful, but if you don't learn how to manage them, they can become the very thing that works against you. Now, before we go any further, let's get something clear. Having emotions is not weakness. Crying isn't weakness. Feeling hurt isn't weakness. Being disappointed isn't weakness. We're human beings. We all experience emotions. We all have moments when life gets overwhelming. We all have situations that touch our hearts and challenge our patience. The problem isn't having emotions. The problem is allowing emotions to control your actions every time they show up. And that's where a lot of people lose value without even realizing it. See, emotional maturity is one of the most attractive qualities a person can possess. Not because it makes you cold, not because it makes you distant, but because it shows that you have control over yourself. And self-control is a form of strength. I've watched people destroy healthy relationships over temporary emotions. A delayed text message becomes a major argument. A misunderstanding becomes a dramatic confrontation. A small disagreement becomes a relationship crisis. And before long, both people are exhausted. Not because the problems were huge, but because every problem was treated like the end of the world. Here's something you need to understand. Life is always going to give you reasons to react emotionally. Always. People will disappoint you. People will make mistakes. People will say things they shouldn't say. People will forget things that matter to you. People will fail to meet your expectations. That's reality. But your power isn't found in controlling what other people do. Your power is found in controlling how you respond. That's what emotionally strong people understand. They don't give every feeling immediate authority. Just because they feel angry doesn't mean they immediately speak. Just because they feel hurt doesn't mean they immediately react. Just because they're frustrated doesn't mean they immediately create conflict. They pause, they think, they process, and then they respond with intention. That's wisdom. And wisdom will always create better outcomes than impulsive reactions. Think about how many arguments begin because somebody reacted before understanding. How many relationships have been damaged because words were spoken in anger? How many opportunities have been lost because emotions took over common sense? More than most people realize. The truth is, your emotions are excellent messengers but terrible leaders. They're supposed to inform you. They're not supposed to control you. When anger shows up, it's trying to tell you something. When sadness shows up, it's trying to tell you something. When disappointment shows up, it's trying to tell you something. But that doesn't mean every emotion deserves immediate action. One of the most valuable skills you can develop is learning the difference between feeling something and acting on it, because those are not the same thing. A mature woman can be hurt and still communicate calmly. She can be disappointed and still remain respectful. She can be frustrated and still maintain her dignity. Why? Because she understands that losing control rarely improves a situation. In fact, it usually makes things worse. Now let's talk about something that happens in relationships all the time. Sometimes people become so emotionally reactive that they start chasing explanations for everything. If he seems quiet, they assume the worst. If he needs space, they panic. If he's distracted, they create stories in their minds. and then they react to those stories as if they're facts. That's how unnecessary drama is created, not from reality, from assumptions. Emotionally mature people don't rush to conclusions. They gather information. They ask questions. They seek understanding before judgment, and that simple habit saves them from countless problems. Another thing you need to know is that composure creates respect. People trust those who remain steady under pressure. People feel safe around those who can handle challenges without becoming chaotic. And relationships thrive when both people feel emotionally safe. When every disagreement turns into yelling, accusations, or emotional explosions, safety disappears. Communication disappears. Trust begins to suffer. Eventually, both people start walking on eggshells. Nobody wants to live like that. The strongest person in the room is rarely the loudest. It's usually the person who can stay calm when everybody else is losing control. The person who can think clearly during difficult moments. The person who can separate temporary emotions from permanent decisions. That's real strength. And let me tell you something else. Not every battle deserves your energy. Some things simply aren't worth the argument. Some comments aren't worth the reaction. Some situations don't deserve access to your peace. Emotionally mature people understand this. They choose their battles wisely. They don't waste their energy trying to win every disagreement. They focus on protecting what matters most: their peace, their dignity, their self-respect, because they understand that being right isn't always as important as being wise. At the end of the day, emotional control isn't about pretending you don't care. It's not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming intentional. It's about refusing to let temporary feelings dictate permanent actions. It's about responding from wisdom instead of reacting from impulse. And when you develop that kind of self-control, something incredible happens. People begin to respect you differently. They trust your judgment. They value your presence. They take your words more seriously because they know you're not being controlled by every emotion that comes along. You're operating from confidence. You're operating from maturity. You're operating from strength. And in a world where so many people react first and think later, that kind of emotional discipline becomes one of the most valuable qualities you can ever possess. Because true power isn't found in controlling other people. True power is found in mastering yourself. Let me tell you something most people don't fully understand until life teaches it to them the hard way. People don't decide how to treat you based on what you say. They decide how to treat you based on what you allow. That's it. Simple, direct, but powerful. Now, a lot of people confuse love with tolerance. They think that if they're patient enough, understanding enough, forgiving enough, then eventually someone will see their worth and start treating them better. But life doesn't work like that. People don't rise to your expectations. They fall to your standards, and your standards are not what you say in a moment of emotion. Your standards are what you consistently enforce through your actions. Let me break that down for you. If somebody crosses a boundary and nothing changes, they learn that the boundary was never real. If somebody disrespects you and still gets access to you, they learn that disrespect has no cost. If somebody lies to you and you stay anyway, they learn that honesty is optional. And once people learn what you tolerate, they adjust their behavior accordingly. Not because they're evil, not because they're trying to hurt you, but because human nature responds to what it can get away with. So when we talk about self-respect, we're not talking about ego. We're talking about structure. We're talking about boundaries. We're talking about the silent rules that teach others how to treat you. Now, here's where many people get stuck. They think setting a boundary is about controlling the other person. It's not. You can't control anyone. You can't force someone to respect you. You can't make someone be consistent. You can't demand emotional maturity from someone who doesn't have it. But you can control what you stay in. You can control what you accept. You can control what you walk away from. And that's where your power lives. See, the moment you stop chasing people who repeatedly disrespect your space, your energy changes. You stop begging for clarity. You stop over-explaining your worth. You stop negotiating basic respect because you finally understand something important. If you have to convince someone to treat you right, they're already not the right person. Self-respect is not loud. It doesn't need announcements. It doesn't need long arguments. It shows up in decisions. It shows up in consistency. It shows up in what you refuse to tolerate a second time. A woman with strong self-respect doesn't argue for basic dignity. She doesn't stay in situations where she is constantly confused, constantly disrespected, or constantly undervalued. She observes behavior, she acknowledges patterns, and she responds accordingly, not emotionally, not impulsively, but firmly. And that firmness is what creates clarity in every relationship. Because when you have no standards, people are confused about how to treat you. But when you have clear standards, everything becomes simple. There is respect or there is distance. There is effort or there is space. There is consistency or there is goodbye. No long negotiations, no emotional chaos, no endless chances for the same behavior. Now let's be honest. One of the hardest things for people to do is walk away from someone they care about. Even when the behavior is wrong, even when the treatment is inconsistent, even when the relationship is draining them emotionally. They stay, they justify, they excuse, they hope things will change. But hope without change is just self-deception, because real change is shown through actions, not promises. And the longer you stay in something that violates your standards, the more your self-respect gets eroded quietly, not in one moment, but slowly. One compromise at a time, one ignored boundary at a time, one silent acceptance at a time, until one day you wake up and realize you don't even recognize how far you've drifted from your own worth. That's why self-respect is not something you build once. It's something you maintain daily, through decisions, through boundaries, through consistency, and through the courage to leave what repeatedly disrespects your peace. Now listen carefully. The right people will not require you to lower your standards. The right people will not make you question your worth. The right people will not punish you for having boundaries. In fact, they will respect you more because of them. Because emotionally healthy people are not threatened by standards. They are drawn to them. They understand that respect creates stability, and stability creates trust. And trust is what makes relationships strong. So when you protect your self-respect, you are not pushing the right people away. You are filtering out the wrong ones. And that is not loss. That is clarity. At the end of the day, your value is not defined by who chooses you. Your value is defined by what you refuse to accept. And the moment you start honoring yourself enough to walk away from what dishonors you, everything in your life begins to shift. Because self-respect doesn't just change your relationships. It changes your entire life. The way you think, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, and the way the world responds to you. And once you reach that level, you stop begging for respect. You start expecting it. And anything less than that no longer has a place in your life. Let me leave you with this. At the end of the day, people will come and go, situations will change, emotions will rise and fall, but one thing will always stay in your hands: how you see yourself. Because the truth is, no man, no relationship, no attention, and no validation from anyone else can ever define your real worth. They can only reflect what you are already believing about yourself. And the moment you start accepting less than what you deserve, you don't just lose respect from others. You slowly start losing respect for yourself. And that is where everything begins to fall apart. But when you decide no more, something powerful happens. When you decide to stop chasing, stop overgiving where there is no effort, stop tolerating disrespect, and stop shrinking yourself just to be chosen, your entire energy shifts. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to argue it. You don't need to prove it. People feel it. Because self-respect speaks louder than words ever will. And from that point forward, you stop asking, why don't they value me? And you start asking, why was I ever accepting less than my worth? That's the real change. So remember this, the right love will never require you to lose yourself. The right respect will never make you beg for it. And the right person will never make you feel like you have to shrink in order to be accepted. Stand firm in who you are. Protect your peace. Honor your value. Because once you truly understand your worth, you stop chasing what runs from you, and you start attracting what aligns with you.